Taiwan, baby.
Taiwan.
To this day.
To this day. To this day.
To this day.
We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. A tweet from Michael Benson reads, Andy Ruiz versus Luis Ortiz is reportedly possible to happen next. It's claimed the PBC have serious interest in making this heavyweight clash for mid-2020. Now, I've been seeing a lot of the talks, a lot of the rumors, a lot of the blurbs associated with what could be Andy Ruiz versus Luis Ortiz.
It's a good fight.
The million-dollar question, as it were, is this fight a good fight?
Is it?
I'll have to say yes, it is. Is this fight an intriguing fight where anything can happen, where, Andy Ruiz stands as much of a chance of winning this fight as Luis Ortiz does? Is this that kind of a situation? The answer to that question is yes.
It's a 50-50 fight.
But is this fight as good an opponent choice for Andy Ruiz as what was already on the table for him in Dillian Whyte? Is Luis Ortiz, at this point, a better opponent option than Dillian Whyte was? The answer to that question is no. That's right, the answer to that question is no.
No!
At this point, what is Luis Ortiz? I'll tell you what Luis Ortiz is. He's a guy in his 40s coming off a very violent knockout loss.
Remember?
That's what he is.
Did y'all forget?
Compared to Dillian Whyte, who is coming off 11, count them, 11 consecutive victories. This guy hasn't lost a fight in years. This guy hasn't lost a fight since 2015 when he locked horns with Anthony Joshua. This guy is not a guy who's coming off a loss pushing 40, okay? This is a guy who is in his prime and who's gone on a tear. He's on a hot streak, and he's been on a hot streak for a long time now. So in that way, if you're cross-comparing opponents, one would have to say that, yeah, Dillian Whyte would have been a better opponent choice for Andy Ruiz than Luis Ortiz is, because Luis Ortiz is coming off a loss, and this guy's pushing 40. He's an older guy. He's getting long in the tooth. It's not my imagination. These aren't my anecdotes. That's reality. One must also wonder if Andy Ruiz stands to make the same money for Luis Ortiz that he could have made fighting Dillian Whyte, because you fight Dillian Whyte in the UK, that's a pay-per-view. That's what that is. You fight him here in the US, DAZN will put up a lot of money to stage that thing, because it's a very interesting situation. But either way, that fight pays cash money if you're willing to have it. Whereas with Luis Ortiz, I'm not so sure, because Luis Ortiz don't have the following here that Dillian Whyte has over there. Over there in Dillian Whyte's backyard, where he's based out of. He's a pay-per-view fighter. He's a marquee attraction. The same cannot be said of Luis Ortiz here, because Luis Ortiz, unlike Dillian Whyte, he doesn't headline his own cards.
Not without Wilder.
The only time you've seen this guy headlining a card was alongside the name of Deontay Wilder. But outside of that, he was an undercard fighter. That's what he's been doing. Whereas Dillian Whyte, he has his own events. He has his own fights, his own headlines. Devoid of an Anthony Joshua, devoid of a Tyson Fury, devoid of a Deontay Wilder. Over there in the UK, Dillian Whyte's a headliner. Over here in the US, Luis Ortiz is not. So one must ask, does Andy actually stand to make the same money fighting Luis Ortiz that he would have made fighting Dillian Whyte? I think the answer to that question is no. I think that if Andy went this route, it's for a few reasons. One, because, Luis Ortiz, formidable as he might be, and he is. I mean, he's a top 10 fighter at the end of the day. No matter what top 10 ranked standing you look at, you'll see the name of Luis Ortiz there. So he is formidable, but he's also pushing 40, and he's also coming off a loss. He's not going on a tear the way that Dillian Whyte has been going on a tear, you understand? That makes him a more attractive opponent option for a guy who's also coming off a loss the way that Luis Ortiz is coming off a loss. Because, lest we forget, Andy's coming right off a loss, a one-sided schooling to Anthony Joshua. So Andy Ruiz is on the rebound the same way that Luis Ortiz is on the rebound. They're both on the mend. That's a more attractive and a more safe situation than taking on a guy who's on a hot streak.
Like Dillian Whyte is.
A guy who's got momentum, a guy who finished his fight on his feet and secured the victory, as opposed to finishing the fight on his back in defeat. Don't get it twisted. Don't get confused. I think that Ruiz versus Ortiz is still an intriguing matchup. I do happen to think that these two guys are more or less evenly matched because they are both on the mend. They are both on the rebound. They're both top 10 fighters. And it's a good fight. I mean, I'm not going to shit all over it. It's a good fight. It is. It's just that if you're comparing both opponent options, Dillian Whyte would have been the better option. The only relevance of this is to the comments that Andy Ruiz made after he decided to pass on Dillian Whyte. You know, if Andy Ruiz hadn't said what he said, that wouldn't have gave you much to reflect upon, but the fact that he treated the situation the way that he did, you gotta compare him. Like, if you're gonna, go as far as saying the shit that you're saying, we're gonna compare who you passed on to who you're fighting. And the guy that you're fighting is a 40-some-odd-year-old fighter coming off a loss. You're not gonna convince me that that's supposed to be better than a Dillian Whyte fight. Dillian Whyte hasn't lost a fight in years. You know what I wonder? I wonder that the people over there at the PBC, I wonder that the people over there at Fox don't intend to stage this Ruiz versus Ortiz fight as a standalone pay-per-view. Yeah, I think that they've got the nerve, the gall, the audacity to stage this fight as a pay-per-view. I think that they might. Because Andy Ruiz has participated in sizable events with Anthony Joshua, 2 of them. He's become recognizable. At minimum, you have to acknowledge that. And Luis Ortiz, well, he's coming off his pay-per-view debut. They might think that this guy's got some kind of great market value. Though I think there are a lot of people out there that would disagree. At the end of the day, the facts are what they are, that, Luis Ortiz just made his pay-per-view debut. So they might actually try to stage this thing as a pay-per-view to ensure that the fighters get paid what they want to get paid to fight the likes of each other. That if they're going to be involved in anything semblant of a risky situation, they get the compensation. So for that reason, I think they might try to. If these guys just tried to sell me and you Wilder versus Ortiz 2 as a pay-per-view where the first fight was on cable, you didn't have to pay $75 to see it. But if they decided to make the rematch a pay-per-view, the nerve it takes to do that, then I think they've got the same nerve to stage this as a pay-per-view. And I do think it's a good fight. I do think it's a decent fight. But what I don't think is that it should cost anyone $75 to see it. That's what I don't think. But what I think may not be very relevant to what the people at the PBC have to say about it. I think that it's entirely possible that because this is a halfway decent fight, they might try to milk it and bilk the boxing fans at large by charging them $75 to see it. Now, if the undercard is presentable, you line up a couple of fights
Good ones
to decorate the thing, then maybe as an event, not a standalone main event, but as an event overall, then maybe you could sell it as a pay-per-view. But these are preliminary talks, preliminary thoughts. We don't know that they're going to stage it as a pay-per-view. I'm just entertaining that idea.
They might.
Because these guys just had the nerve to try to charge me $75 to watch a rerun. So why wouldn't they try to charge me $75 to watch this? They might. This past weekend, when Caleb Plant was defending his IBF super middleweight title against the severely overmatched Vincent Fagan Boots, you might have heard Joe Goosen, veteran trainer, fantastic analyst, great head of hair. He's got great hair, that guy. All right?
Sensational.
You might have heard him say something along the lines of Plant versus Benavidez makes for a good pay-per-view or something along those lines. And that further lends credence to the notion that they might also try to stage a fight like this as a pay-per-view, because these are actually 2 more notariable guys than either Caleb Plant or David Benavidez. In spite of these 2 guys not holding world titles, I think that they are more known amongst more boxing fans around the world than either Caleb Plant or David Benavidez. So if Joe Goosen thinks that that's a pay-per-view, Plant versus Benavidez, just imagine what the execs at Fox and PBC think about this fight, Just putting it out there. I think it's a good fight. I don't think you should charge people $75 to see it. I still think it's a good fight, but it's also, you know, it wasn't the best option on the table for Andy Ruiz. Dillian Whyte would have actually been the better option. Just one man's opinion. Feel free to disagree.
I mean, Dillian Whyte is only waiting because he wants to wait. You know, Dillian Whyte is one of those characters that he wants to call out the best fighters, but he don't want to fight the best fighters. And by calling out the best fighters and he don't get what he wants, it's only a strategy to, like, I'm going to fight a lower opposition, but I'm gonna call a big fighter out, and knowing that I don't want to fight him, I'm gonna get him. So people have sympathy for him and be able to feel sorry for him. So when he do fight a lower opposition, then they create big him on. They give him, you know, the sympathy and the things that they want. That exactly. Just pay attention. Just pay. You know, with me, I've said it many times. You know, I give all fighters the opportunity and chance to come and fight me.
It's appalling what the WBC has allowed Deontay Wilder to do.
Disgusting.
What they have allowed him to get away with. And it's even more appalling that he could sit there with a camera and a mic in his face and expect anyone to believe the utter bullshit coming out of his mouth. That Dillian Whyte is just calling him out. He doesn't actually have any intention of fighting him.
You're right.
He's just using him as a means to garner sympathy, when nothing could be further from the truth. Actions speak louder than words, and the actions of Dillian Whyte communicate that this is a man who is very much hell-bent on fighting Deontay Wilder, even if they're making him jump through hoops and go through obstacles and stifling his opportunity, and he's being consistently put on the back burner. That Dominic Breazeale
Got the shot.
got to have a title shot against Deontay Wilder before Dillian Whyte. That both Luis Ortiz and Tyson Fury will have fought this man 2 times, whereas Dillian hasn't gotten the chance to fight him once. That this has gone on for as long as it's gone on, while Dillian Whyte has been ranked as the WBC's #1 contender, now interim champion.
That's what he is.
That this has gone on for as long as it has really is appalling. I can't imagine how livid Dillian Whyte must be right now. And in truth,
Dillian may not get that fight.
Dillian Whyte would sooner end up winning the vacant version of the WBC's full-fledged title. He'd sooner end up fighting for the vacant title than challenging Deontay Wilder for it, because Deontay Wilder won't willingly give him the shot. It's for this reason that Dillian decided to go through the quote-unquote proper channels, that decided to mishandle the situation and deal with it improperly. What's Wilder trying to convince people of exactly? That Dillian Whyte went as far as joining the clean boxing program because he doesn't want to fight Deontay Wilder? That he's doing all these things, putting forth this effort to maintain his rank in the WBC's rank standings because he doesn't want to fight Deontay Wilder? That he's participated in these eliminators and paid sanctioning fees for trinket titles from a WBC Silver to a WBC Interim? You think he did all this because he don't want to fight Deontay Wilder? You think he takes on a high-risk, low-reward opponent in Oscar Rivas, a guy who stands a good chance of shocking just about anybody that's in there with him because he's got a good amateur background, he's a young guy, and the kid can punch? You think he took on that high-risk, low-reward guy because he doesn't want to line himself up for Deontay Wilder?
Bullshit.
I mean, if actions speak louder than words, then what Dillian Whyte has done so far, his actions say a mouthful, more so than any ramblings you hear from Deontay Wilder via Sky Sports, Fight Hype, Fox, or ESPN. We all know that Wilder's got no shortage of words. This guy's like a WWE superstar, this guy. You put a camera in front of him, and he jumps into character. But the reality of things is, everything that Dillian Whyte has done up until this point communicates that he truly believes he can beat Deontay Wilder, even if Wilder won't willingly give him the shot, even if the WBC will delay it as much as they can.
He persists.
Dillian Whyte still believes he's the man to do it. He believes in himself, and he spent a good portion of his time lining himself up for that fight, even though in all actuality, it may not happen.
May never get that chance.
A lot of other people would have gave up by now. A lot of other people would have seen how much the deck is stacked against them and decided that I'm not going to keep paying sanctioning fees for trinket titles via the WBC so that they can willfully delay my title shot in favor of what Deontay Wilder wants.
Fuck that.
I'm not going to keep giving these guys my money for that because, I mean, in case you guys aren't aware, you got to pay fees for those belts. You got to pay a sanctioning fee in order to be a WBC interim champion. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Yet if Dillian Whyte is doing this, it's because he feels that is still his best bet to get Deontay Wilder in the ring.
It's his only chance.
Of course, Deontay Wilder, he won't fight him as a voluntary. He'd rather fight Luis Ortiz 2 times than fight Dillian Whyte once. He won't willingly give Dillian Whyte the shot, in which case Dillian Whyte's best bet is to go through the powers that be, the sanctioning bodies, one of them, the one that calls Deontay Wilder a champion.
The only one.
And pressure them into forcing Wilder to give him the shot. That's his only avenue of opportunity. That's the only way the fight gets done, because Wilder's not going to give him the shot on his own. I mean, the nerve of Wilder to question Dillian Whyte's commitment to fight the best and brightest fighters that are out there when, hey, newsflash, he's about to fight yet another top 10 fighter in Alexander Povetkin. Before that, he sent out 2 offers to take on Andy Ruiz. He just fought a high-risk, low-reward opponent in Oscar Rivas to secure a trinket, an interim title, to get a shot at you.
Next year.
No luck with that so far. And before that, didn't he face a former world champion in Joseph Parker?
Yeah.
Didn't he have 2 wars with Derek Chisora? That's the same Derek Chisora that's ranked within today's top 10. Dillian Whyte fought that guy 2 times. And unlike you, he actually fought Anthony Joshua. He lost, but better still, he fought him. So, we don't have to question Dillian Whyte's resolve or his commitment to face the best and brightest fighters that are out there. This guy very much is the heavyweight division's can man. That he will fight whoever he can, whenever he can. You know that Dillian Whyte actually has one of the most diverse resumes in the entire division. Have you ever sat back and thought about this? He took Lucas Brown's O. He took Oscar Rivas' O. He faced a former world champion and top 10 fighter in Joseph Parker, faced a seasoned veteran with nothing to lose in Derek Chisora. And what's he about to do? What's he about to do? Take on another high-risk guy in Alexander Povetkin, because in case you're not aware, Dillian Whyte's not perfect, and that's what makes him exciting.
But he could lose.
That he does go into these fights with some chance of losing. That he's risking something every time he goes in there. But he still goes. I mean, you think about what Wilder said in retrospect with what you can find in Dillian Whyte's resume, and I'd have to say that the only people that Wilder could appeal to with what he's saying are people who don't actually follow boxing. He's relying on the ignorance, or what is to be the ignorance of me and you, except me and you aren't ignorant. We know better. We know that Dillian Whyte wouldn't be doing this shit if he didn't truly believe that he can beat you. And in truth, I'm not even convinced that Dillian Whyte wins that fight. But he is, and that's why he's doing what he's doing. And that's why what you're saying makes no fucking sense whatsoever.